A Chinese car giant built its own fleet of ships, 8 of them. A car company with its own private navy that can move 1 million cars a year. Genius, right? But scroll the comments, and people keep asking the same thing. 1 million cars? The math doesn't add up, and nobody explains the strangest part of all. These giant ships sail out packed with cars, and then they come home completely empty. Here is the story nobody is telling you. Start with that famous number, 1 million cars a year. It is real, but it is not what you think. 1 million is the capacity of the fleet. It is the most those ships could ever carry if they ran full, all year, without a break. It is not how many cars BYD actually ships today. Look at the real sales. Last year, BYD sold about 4.25 million cars. Only around 1 in 10 of those left China. That is roughly 425,000 cars sold overseas, and not even all of them travel on BYD's own ships. So the fleet that can move 1 million is really carrying a fraction of that right now. In other words, the number in the headline is a promise, not a receipt. And it matters, because the whole genius story depends on those ships being packed and busy. The truth is quieter. BYD did not build 8 ships because it already had 1 million cars waiting at the dock. It built them as a bet that its exports would keep climbing fast enough to fill all that steel. To see why a car company would make a bet that big, you have to go back to the moment when renting a ship stopped making sense. For 100 years, car makers did not own ships. They built cars and paid specialists to carry them across the sea. It was cheap, it was flexible, and nobody thought about it. Then the price exploded. In the middle of 2020, renting a car-carrying ship cost around $10,000 a day. By late 2023, the shipping research firm Clarkson's put the rate at a record $115,000 a day. That is about 7 times the normal level from just a few years before. Why? 2 things hit at the same time. The world's fleet of car carriers had been shrinking for years, because after the 2008 crash nobody wanted to build new ones. At the same time, China's car exports shot almost straight up. More cars, fewer ships, prices went wild. And it was not just about money. When a rival locks up a ship for 3 years, that ship is simply gone. It does not matter how many cars you have ready, they just sit in a parking lot in the rain. For BYD, shipping had turned from a small cost into a real threat. So its founder, Wang Chuanfu, decided to stop renting and start building. In 2022, BYD said it would spend about $687 million to build 8 car carriers. It called them a maritime bridge. Plenty of experts laughed. Car makers do not build ships. That is just not what they do. But BYD had one huge advantage that the doubters missed. The shipyards were at home. China builds more new ships than any other country on earth, by a wide margin. So while a European car maker would wait years just for a place in line, BYD was dealing with a yard right down the coast. The result came fast. The first ship, BYD Explorer No. 1, sailed to Europe in early 2024 on a 41-day maiden voyage. It runs on cleaner LNG fuel, partly so it stays legal in European waters for the next 25 years. Then the ships kept arriving. The biggest, the BYD Shenzhen, can carry 9,200 cars across 16 decks. When it launched, it was the largest car carrier ever built, beating the old record holder by about 100 cars. Inside, it looks less like a ship and more like a floating parking garage with floors that move up and down. By late 2025, the 8th and final ship, the BYD Jinan, entered service, and BYD signalled that would likely be it for now. 8 ships in under 2 years, starting from zero. It was a stunning piece of work, and it hid one very simple problem. Here is the part the headlines skip. Every trip a car carrier makes has 2 halves, and only one of them makes money. BYD loads its ships in China and sends them to Europe, Brazil and Australia. Full decks, thousands of cars, packed in tight. That trip out is beautiful, then the ship has to come home, and Europe does not send 9,000 cars back to China, neither does Brazil, neither does Australia. In April and May of 2025, 3 BYD ships arrived in Brazil, all full, racing to beat a new import tax. All 3 left again empty. This is not a small detail. An empty ship burns almost as much fuel as a full one. It still pays the same crew, the same port fees, the same insurance. Every single mile of that trip home is pure loss. Multiply that across 8 ships crossing entire oceans, and the cost of all that empty water starts to pile up. And this is the exact problem the old shipping giants spent 100 years solving. They carry Japanese cars one way, European machines another way, used cars to Africa on the way back. So a ship is almost never empty. BYD skipped all of that to move fast and stay in control. For now, that is a fair trade, but it is also the weakest point in the whole plan. And there is a bigger worry hiding underneath. BYD bought these ships at the very top of the market when renting looked insane. But the thing about the top of a market is that it never lasts. Those record shipping rates have already started falling. By 2024, the same kind of ship that cost $115,000 a day was down closer to $95,000. And analysts began penciling in rates below $50,000. Why? Because the world finally started building car carriers again. In 2024 alone, around 44 new ones were delivered, 4 times as many as the year before. The shortage that made BYD's ships look so clever is slowly closing. Think about what that means. A ship is a 25-year commitment. You cannot sell it the moment the market turns against you. That is a long time to be sure about anything. Owning a fleet looks brilliant during a shortage. During a glut, it looks like a giant pile of bills you cannot get rid of. If renting becomes cheap again, the car makers who stayed flexible and never bought a single ship might end up looking like the smart ones. BYD is betting that its exports will grow fast enough, for long enough, to keep all 8 ships full and worth it. And nobody, including BYD, can truly see that far ahead. So why do it anyway? Because BYD is not really betting on the ships. It is betting on control. A rented ship is a favour. Your own ship is a fact. When Mexico announced a new import tax, BYD simply sent its biggest ship across the Pacific and landed the cars with days to spare. No phone calls, no begging anyone for space. That kind of control is hard to put a price on, and BYD has a backup plan built right in. It is now building car factories in Brazil, Hungary, Thailand, Pakistan, and Uzbekistan. Here is the twist. Every car built inside those countries is a car that never needs a ship at all. So the more successful those factories become, the less BYD may actually need its shiny new fleet. The ships could even be rented out, filling that empty trip home with other companies' cargo, turning a weakness into a business. Not everyone is convinced. When BYD's ship reached Australia, a Ford executive called the whole thing a stunt, pointing out that car ships arrive every week without any fuss. Maybe he is right. Or maybe he is watching a car company quietly turn itself into a shipping line. That is the real question worth sitting with. So, smart move or a 25-year gamble?